Injury-shortened season in 2020 on the franchise tag and somehow still managed to have his leverage skyrocket. But now Dak and the Cowboys remain at a stalemate on a long-term deal. And yesterday here on this program, Mike Tannenbaum floated the sign-and-trade idea.
Trade him to the Bears for 3 first-round picks. You don't think Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace would give up 3 first-round picks to have a young franchise quarterback in Dak Prescott? So I agree with you. The best way for them to cut their losses today is to try to get 3 ones for Dak and start all over again, because you have an aging running back in Zeke Elliott that's getting paid too much. You've lost good young players, so you might as well start over now. You can't win with Andy Dalton. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, and so what he's referring to was this thing that I floated, and let me bring my former Cowboy into the conversation here, Marcus Spears. Jerry Jones, there's just really no nice way to say this, has screwed this situation up so badly, has put himself into a position where it is going to be so expensive that right now, realistically, the best thing they can do is sign and trade him and rebuild. Because even with him, they're a bad team. They're not a Super Bowl contender or anything close, even with him. And it'll cost them $90 million to assure themselves of keeping him the next 2 seasons and him not walking away for absolutely nothing. So the best option right now for the Cowboys, as much as I think he's a great player, Marcus, is to sign and trade him and start all over again.
Gee, I hate to agree with this because I'm a fan. And I love Dak Prescott. And I want Dak Prescott to be the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. But to your point, and to Tannenbaum's point, we are not here if we not sitting here for 3 years talking about this. We don't have type of things come up about franchise quarterbacks if we're not having these same conversations year in and year out. And G, to that point, I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, I don't know if you can get 3 ones for Dak Prescott because of the ankle injury. If you know anything about the league, you know people going to throw all of the bad stuff out there to devalue you in order to get you to perform at a high level. That's what they do. Every free agent has been through it. Jeff Saturday understands. I'm the greatest center in the world when I'm in the 2nd year of my contract. When I'm in the 5th year of it and I got to get re-upped again, I got a lot to work on to be a center. So I don't know if other teams would give 3 ones, but if I'm Dallas and somebody came at me with 3 first-round picks, knowing the financial situation that I'm in, that I'll be in, and I'm in with Dak, that is definitely something that I would have to think about as the Cowboys. Yeah. And that breaks my heart because he the only chance we got, man.
It is. It's understandable that the fans would be frustrated by this. But Jeff Saturday, here's the real. They behaved last offseason, like they were a win right now team. They went out and they hired a coach they thought could get them to the Super Bowl. They drafted a wide receiver in the first round. They acted like they were about to win the Super Bowl, and they went 6-10 and lost a division in which no team wound up with a winning record. So that's where they actually are, Jeff, regardless of where they think they are. So Jeff Saturday, what do you think of the idea of starting over?
Yeah, I think you're giving up too much for Dak Prescott. I mean, listen, I don't. First of all, Dak Prescott has made will make just under $70 million his tagged years, right? So the sign and trade idea is great if he wants to go there. But guess what? He's won this thing, man. He has all the leverage. Dak Prescott's going to get franchised again. He can sit on that contract, play it, and then next year he can pick where he wants to go. So if he don't want to go to Chicago for 3 picks, he doesn't have to do any of this thing because it requires that sign and trade deal for him. I think Dak Prescott just plays this thing totally cool. They would have to do everything exactly as I said if I'm Dak Prescott before I go anywhere. I'm going to sit this thing back. I'm going to play it as easy as I can because I've already won. And your point is this. They went 6-10 last year. Why'd they go 6-10? Because he was on the bench. They're not a 6-10 football team if he's on that football field. This is a different group, and they don't just fall. Listen, they don't just fall to you, men. This guy has earned it. He has earned it. I don't care how many picks you're getting. If they can't come in and produce like him, you screwed yourself again.
Jeff Darlington.
Jeff Saturday is exactly right. I remember having a conversation with Scott McLuhan. He was the general manager of the Washington football team, and he basically told me that if they didn't sign Kirk Cousins at a specific point, that the balance was going to weigh that they would never be able to sign him because he was going to be too expensive to where it just couldn't happen. And that's where I feel like we have gotten to with Dak Prescott. Jeff Saturday is right. Just like Kirk Cousins hit a point where he won, Dak Prescott is now there as well. He has no incentive to take a team incentivized deal. He should play this thing out, play for $37.5 million this season, and go get his money. There is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and so that's where it's going to wind up going. And so, Marcus, here's what's worse. The only thing worse for you as a fan than them trading him away and you seeing him go?
I know Wentz hasn't had the best season last year, but come on, Mitchell Trubisky, this is a great upgrade. You think about what he was. He's a guy that was sacked 50 times. We saw Patrick Mahomes become a mere mortal when he didn't have protection. Well, that's exactly what Carson Wentz had to endure in Philadelphia. If he goes to Chicago, that makes Chicago, I believe, a Super Bowl contender. Or the Colts as well.
So throwing in or the Colts as well, everybody is going to agree with. I think we all agree that maybe any of us sitting here on your screen right now could go to Indianapolis and the Colts might be a Super Bowl contender. But Jeff Darlington, let's start with the pieces here. What do we know about this trade? Because we had reason to believe there was reporting that this was imminent, and the days keep going by. What do we know is the latest on Carson Wentz?
So, Greeny, I was just having a conversation with somebody who's very close to the situation. And basically, by the way, at the end of this conversation, I don't want to bury the lead here. I said, so what's the holdup? And the answer was simple. It's February 16th. The league year doesn't even start for another month, with a lot of exclamation points on that. Mm-hmm. And that is an important point, by the way. March 19th is the date that they would owe Carson Wentz $10 million. So that's maybe the target, the runway that this team has to play with. But, you bring up the idea of, like, what is the hang-up? If there's a couple of teams out there like the Bears and the Colts that are interested in him, why wouldn't they just pull the trigger on the best deal at this point? I am told that it's not as if Carson Wentz has a no-trade clause in his contract. They don't have to really care what he thinks on this. Now, Carson Wentz can help them contractually to make the trade a more lucrative option for the potential suitor, but that doesn't have to happen. So basically, long story short, the Eagles simply have time, so they feel like they might as well just kind of milk this thing to make sure that they get the best option before they pull the trigger on a trade.
Sometimes you have to be a little careful of that, though, because there are other teams out there that might just decide to make other moves. So we'll see. This is the chess game that comes along with this carousel. So, Jeff Saturday, work with me. We heard what Bart Scott said. Complete this sentence. If they get Carson Wentz, the Chicago Bears with Carson Wentz at their quarterback are what?
A playoff team. Chicago Bears, that's it. Like, they're not Super Bowl contenders, absolutely not. Like, listen, this team has a lot to improve on. I don't think Carson Wentz pushes them over the top. I mean, when you talk about what Darlington's talking about, the Colts versus the Bears and what that looks like, listen, man, the Chicago Bears, defensively, you have their defensive coordinator who's leaving. He's retiring. They have an offensive line that was just average. They have a running back who played above grade. But it's not like Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, you bench Mitchell Trubisky because he wasn't good enough. You bring in Foles. There's too much stuff going on here with Nagy, this whole organization. I'm just telling you, if I'm Carson Wentz, I'm pumping the brakes on the Bears. It's not like they've made these offensive steps. They've regressed every year offensively in Chicago since Nagy has been there. So if you're Carson Wentz, I would say be aware, buyer beware on this situation. I know he didn't have a whole lot to say, but I'd say what I could for sure.
Yeah, it does to Darlington's point. Yeah. Unlike Deshaun, he doesn't have a no-trade clause, so he really doesn't have control over the situation beyond whatever actions he might be able to take. Marcus, I'll give you the easier and fun one. What are the Indianapolis Colts with Carson Wentz as their quarterback?
Oh, they Super Bowl contenders if they return him to what we think his form would be. Right? You think about this, G. This is one of the conundrums that people are having with Carson Wentz. We all watched the tape last year. You wouldn't trade a bag of damn Skittles for him based on what he did last year at quarterback. But everybody is thinking about this from the 2017 perspective and the 2018 when he took this team that was belabored to the playoffs, beat Dallas in that final conference game to get to the playoffs. Listen, it's never been a question about Carson Wentz's talent or whether he could play the position. We've seen him play this position at the highest level in the MVP conversation. So all teams are betting on 3 years ago what Carson Wentz did.
Yeah.
And there is absolutely a market for him. Like, I don't want people to get it twisted. I threw a bag of Skittles out there because he did play terrible. But